Welcome to the Second Bite Podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
Welcome back to the Second Bite Podcast. We've got a great episode today. As listeners know, we spend a lot of our time talking about transactions and deals and EBITDA and structure and on and on and on. Today, we're going to talk about something that's top of mind for lots of agency owners, and that is efficiency, profitability, and the impact of AI on the entire marketplace. My guest, Jordan Ross, is with me. Jordan, thank you so much for joining.
Todd, it's good to see you again, and thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're doing like a home and home thing, right? I think mine might come out before yours. We had a great time talking about transactions and the impact that AI has on deal transaction. And I want to spend a bunch of time really just kind of focused on that. So if we could, let's talk about the 8-figure agency, the business model that you have. Tell me what you do and who you do it for, and then maybe we'll go back and bring us forward.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting time to ask that question, because if you asked me a year ago and you asked me today, it's different answers. But 8-figure agency is the world's first AI consulting firm for marketing agencies. So historically, we've been an operations and growth consulting firm for marketing agencies. And my background to get to that point was with Amazon. I ran operations in fulfillment centers for 4 years. I managed over 2,000 employees.
But that, and to interrupt, that was right out of school, right?
It's crazy. They hire 21 and 22-year-olds I was out of college. I was 21, 22 years old. I was managing over 100 employees, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So yeah, they really throw you in the fire, and you're totally not qualified. But I went there to study. I studied how they run their business because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I was like, I'm going to go there. So I did that. Along the way, I studied and mastered their model. I started consulting business on the side, and that was 8-figure agency. And today, we are taking what we've historically done. We work with marketing agencies. They come to us because they have problems and constraints primarily in their operation or in the founder's time or somewhere that's not sales and marketing focused that needs to be solved. We go in, understand the problem, root cause the problem, build a process to solve the problem, help them implement the problem. And the only difference today is we've just built an engineering team. We have over 2,000 hours of AI engineers fully developing solutions for our customers that we map out. And we just added on that step after working with agencies for 6 years. So it's an evolution of what we've already done, which is why it's so seamless and easy. Okay, it's not easy. It's so seamless for us to add this as an extension. So that's a long-winded answer for who we are.
It's a good answer. And I want to dig in, but I got to ask the question. What was, going back to the Amazon days, what was the one thing that shocked you or surprised you the most while you were there, just about how they operated the business, how efficient it was, how wasteful it was, whatever it might be? But what surprised you the most?
Man, there were when I reflect on it as an entrepreneur, I'll tell you reflections on looking back on it. The first thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is Amazon operators are like, I've worked with, I think, hundreds or thousands of managers and operators. There are very few entrepreneurs that I've met that are better than my coworkers who are at Amazon. So that's number one. Wow. I think entrepreneurs actually are horrible at running operations. So when I think about it in hindsight, with that frame, the thing that's surprising is this company built a culture of just nurturing and building great operators. Their burn rate's extremely high. Within 12 months, I launched a facility in Columbus, Ohio. We were the highest volume facility in the world at the time. So 2016 and 2018 was when I was there. We were doing over 1 million SKUs of volume a day, a lot of times. And I launched that facility from nothing with 60 college hires. And a year later, there were less than 30. So they're churning more than half of the people they hire within 12 months because it's so intense. So that was the thing that was just I knew it was intense. I didn't know how intense it'd be. So it's kind of like if you go into investment banking, right? Like, you know what you're getting, you're getting into long days, like 18 hours, like, but the upsides there at Amazon. It's like the upside is like, you're not going from Amazon to like make $500,000 or a 7-figure potential working in a PE firm afterwards at Amazon. It's just like, I'll get a promotion, I'll get a 10% raise, I'll keep eating poop with my career. It's a grind forever.
It sure seems like a pretty effective way to get a master's or an MBA in business if you want to.
Oh yeah. I went there because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was like, I'll study this business, and it worked. It worked really well.
Excellent. So one of the things I hear you talk about is creating these operational machines. Is that accurate still?
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me, maybe it's helpful. I think examples are always a little bit more helpful. Give me like a success story or an example of an agency, how you made them maybe more efficient, more profitable, and maybe the role that AI played in that.
So the people we're doing AI with, a lot of them don't want to be shared publicly. But I'll tell you one potential we have, because we're like seeing it unfold. So I just brought a young professional on my podcast, Mark May with House. And when he came to us, the kid's a rainmaker. He could make so much money, but he didn't know how to grow a business. We mapped out everything of how do you source, hire, onboard trade talent, how do you onboard clients, how do you have customer success principles, how do you manage a large org. And that full story is on my YouTube channel, but Mark added multi-million dollars in top line revenue in 12 months, which is really uncommon for an agency that's newer. And what we scoped out for him, now that we've looked at his org and he's running it like a normal agency, the AI implications for him, when I looked at it, I was like, dude, your pods, you're managing about 12 clients. We could easily take this from 12 to 15 to 18 clients. And we could help you add like potentially anywhere between $500,000 ARR all the way up to an extra $1 million ARR just by making your process more efficient with technology. And that's a use case of when you work with a 7-figure agency and you take their process. We built a normal process. The process was a good process. It was scalable. Each pod can manage 12 accounts. And then we optimize it with tech on the back end of that. Now we're really building a machine because they can manage, that $500,000 to $1 million in ARR. That's just profit. And it creates this crazy flywheel. And this is what we'll dive into. But what I told him, I was like, look, man, in a worst case scenario, if you had $500,000 a year in profit and you invest that correctly into talent, into marketing, into better strategists, you create this crazy compounding vehicle, and it's all unlocked with just codifying and building efficiency with AI. So that's the quick anecdote of like quick case study story, and then what's even further potential when you actually implement AI.
So you must see very common recurring themes, recurring problems with agencies, and there must be a lever or two almost any agency could go to improve efficiency and profitability.
Yes. The clients we engage with have a level of maturity where they're already doing 7 or 8 figures. And they're mature 7 or 8 figures too, mostly, where they have predictability. So there's some form of predictability in sales and marketing, which means there's some form of predictability around growth of the organization. The lever that we look to pull firstly, that's the quickest to drive ROI, is efficiency. So a quick and like a small anecdote is every agency that has a strategist requires a strategist to pull data, analyze data, and then create new strategies. So in the example of an advertising agency, a strategist will typically download Google Ads, Meta Ads, an advertising report, They'll look at the best campaign, the worst campaign. Was budget met? How much should we spend? Should we increase it? Like a lot of simple levers. And with one client, Andy Solhoff with Lodestone, we unlocked, I think it was like 200 to 400,000 in profit or capacity to like then sell into, so that creates that profit by just automating that workflow, giving a strategist about an hour a week. An hour game that we're playing, when I talk to an agency and I say, hey, the product roadmap we're going to build is looking at your team members' time or the most important people on your ops team that fulfill directly to clients. When we look at their time log collectively, what are the things that we are going to remove, automate, and agenticize, that when we stack each of those wins, like one after another over the course of a year, how many more clients can they add? And that's the game. Because I could give you probably like 10 of those stories where it's just, oh, we're saving 20 hours per week per pod, and that leads to 3 more clients. And that's the lever we pull first, because that's very quick ROI.
So those like next 3 clients have no incremental cost.
It's straight to the bottom line. So for you, right? So like when we're talking like going to market, if you had an extra $1 million in EBITDA, and if you're selling to a strategic buyer and you're selling at a, call it 10 to 12x multiple, because it's, they really want that business and they're willing to pay a premium on the multiple, you could be adding that could be a $10 million addition just by taking an extra 90, like in the example I made earlier, like we could create that solution in under sometimes 3 to 4 months, right? It's pretty,
and I wouldn't, right. And if your business trades for 5 times EBITDA,
even if it's 5 times, right?
So it's the leverage is so strong. It just adds value.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So as we're going more up market, as we're working with more 8-figure agencies, the levers become actually significantly easier. Especially as we just look at P&L, look at inefficiencies compared to in the past. I feel like I've been running a consulting firm for 6, almost 7 years. And we could go in and build, like historically, we go in and we build as good of efficiency as possible, but we're limited by humans. Now it's like we're going in on steroids and doing the same thing. And it's a complete game changer, because the revenue that could be managed per employee starts to move closer to what a SaaS business looks like. And that's why I believe, we were speaking about an agency's only trading on EBITDA. But I do believe there's a use case, like to get a strategic buyer if you are that good, if your business is that tech enabled, you're leading the market. We're still in the innovators curve. So few people are actually developing technology like this. And I do believe a lot of strategic buyers are going to want to buy agencies for the tech. And I think there's a massive amount of capital to be won on the market as a result.
About this on your episode. And maybe that happens, maybe that doesn't. But one thing I'm certain of, if your $8 million agency is doing 25% EBITDA margins instead of 20, that is a more valuable agency.
Yeah.
With no value for the tech.
Yeah. The multiple, take the multiple away, the profits just could be larger, right? And that's where when someone says, I'm looking to sell, I'm like, that's awesome. We're going to make you a lot more money. So and more
quickly. Let me ask this question. So we have 2 agencies, right, that I introduce you to. I'm going to introduce you to the ABC agency, and they're doing $1 million of EBITDA. And I'm going to introduce you to the XYZ agency, and they're doing, let's say, $4 million of EBITDA. If you had to make a guess of what's constraining the $1 million EBITDA business, and then what's constraining the $4 million EBITDA business, what do you think they would be, and how different would they be at those 2 levels?
So let's just do some quick math here, right? So if I'm running $1 million agency and I'm doing 20% margins, right?
5 million doing 1.
Exactly. So a mid 7-figure agency is like the typical, like I like to say it's a lot easier to go from 5 million to 10 million you have the capital to scale, and usually at that level, it's really about doubling down on what works really well. So it's how do you create velocity? So you're typically a little bit more lean. The constraints are usually the business just isn't thoroughly defined, typically, right? Typically. So at a $5 million agency,
when you say not thoroughly defined, you mean their offering, their marketplace, their targets?
How do we effectively scale? How do we go from 5 to 10 million? Because like when I meet a $20 million agency, there is a significant difference in sophistication, right? So what is the math of scaling? What's our cycle time for everything, right? What is our lead time and cycle time for when we put $1 million into ads? How many calls do we get booked? How long does it take to close? What's our average closing rate? Do we have good processes to work those leads? How long does it take to onboard a client? What's our capacity to onboard? How long does it take to source talent? For every 10 hires we make, how many are successful? So I like to say between 1 and 5, you're figuring out who you are. Between 5 and 10, you're figuring out how to build velocity. So at $1 million in EBITDA, it's really what is the game of math that we need to better play? How do we typically build efficiency in this business, right? How do we need to better define the playbooks to go from 5 to 10, and then we need to put capital behind it to hire the right people, build the right tech. At 4 million, we're looking at a larger agency where in theory, I say in theory because most businesses are operationally shit shows. But in theory, if I'm working with a $4 million agency, it's what we would be probably looking at is, hey, there's probably a lot of waste in this organization. You probably already have your equations here on how you want to grow. You have some methodology that's working. Can we unlock an extra $1 million in EBITDA? And typically it's, where are we going to deploy that million in EBITDA? Or are you going to deploy $500,000 and keep the $500,000? That's just going to, you know your numbers at this game. So how can we just expedite going from 4 million to 5 million, 5 million to 8? And that's more linear because of the sophistication of when we free up $100,000 or $1 million in free cash flow, it expedites our growth trajectory by this much. The math is far more defined. That's just typically what I see, right? The levels of sophistication.
What do you see as a difference in the sales function between a $4 million EBITDA business and a $1 million?
It's typically significant. So one of the keynote speakers of my event that I'm hosting in April of 2026, his name is Jonathan Sturgeon. I think he's the epitome of this. He runs an 8-figure agency called Mingus and Zazzy. An 8-figure agency that's doing 4 million in EBITDA is typically going to have greater than their SDR and sales process is better. They're probably ranking the 0.25% of the market. So in John's use case, they touch a lead upwards on average 18 times to close a deal. A $5 million agency or an agency doing 1 million in EBITDA, they're probably touching them 6 or 8, maybe 8.
And then they give up?
And then, then the delta is John's agency, the 8-figure agency and the smaller agency, they both have the times where they're touching the prospect 6 to 8 times. And that batch of revenue is coming in. The difference, what I've seen with an agency like John's with a sophisticated 8-figure agency with really good sales process, all that extra revenue, the extra $1, $2, $3, $4 million in revenue that they're going to clear in that calendar year, whatever the number is coming because they're working their leads so much more thoroughly. They're going to touch them up to 18, 20, 25 times. So they're going to work that lead until they get a yes or an unsubscribe or whatever. And that's usually the difference. In Alex Hormozi's lingo, it's more, better, new, right? So they're just doing it more and they're doing it better.
So is this part of, because I've heard some of your stuff online and YouTube where you talk about spending more time on your clients than hunting down new clients. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, and you know this, right? If you're going to market your business and you're looking at EBITDA, when I'm thinking about growth strategy of an agency, I just play via theory of constraints. So what are the levers that we have at our disposal that when we pull them, more revenue or profit comes in? One of the easiest levers to pull is, okay, how much is the average customer paying us, right? If the average customer, so in an 8-figure agency, you're typically seeing an average customer paying north of 50K. It's very common to have like 20K, like 15, 20K, but they're just doing far more volume. They're having thousands of customers, but the 8-figure agencies I like to engage with, right? The people that I really respect, they're having 6-figure, 7-figure LTVs. And, it's commonplace that they are looking to expand services. And also when you talk about spending more time, they have the psychology mapped out of the engagement. So like, what are the important touch points that when we pull these levers, it nets better customer experience, which nets higher LTV, or they are really good at the consultative process of strategy and they identify different use cases and needs, and then they cross-sell. So I was talking to an agency, they're currently they're going to clear this year at 3 million. And I asked them what their average LTV is. And I think they said the average customer will pay them about 40,000. And I said, great, what's your plan to take it to 80? And they were talking about doing their process better. I'm like, okay, you do content on X, newsletter, and LinkedIn. I think it's very logical to add an SEO. How many customers do you have? They told me the number. I'm like, great. If we had a strategist and we powered that strategist with an agentic process, meaning we supercharge their ability to write content, I think we're able to build for 80% efficiency. You go to 100 of your customers, you have a 20% closing rate at a 5K retainer, you just unlock $120,000 a month. $100,000 a month, $1.2 million in revenue with decent margin. You're now clearing easily, extra 400, 500,000. So like that's kind of the games I play of like, what are these levers and how feasible and how long does it take?
But you also don't, it's not just a conversation, right? You actually help them implement exactly what you just described.
Well, yeah, that's the game of consulting, right? So what it would have been in the past, if I had that conversation 2024, I would have told the person how to do it. You're going to go hire someone that's really good at SEO. And you're going to go pre-sell this was the conversation. You're going to go pre-sell your customers. Hey, we're rolling out SEO. It's going to be $5K a month added onto your services. But if you're one of our first 20 clients, we'll give it to you for $2,500 a month. You're going to go preload the revenue. You do that for 10 clients, you're at 25K MRR. You're going to go hire a really good strategist, right? The average strategist for an agency, you're talking about 60 to 80K. If you go to a sophisticated agency, you're looking at 120K to like 180K in salary plus comp, added comp. So you're going to go preload 25K in revenue. You're going to go find a strategist and their cost is already covered. The difference now, it's like, that's the strategy. And oh, hey, we know how to work with this person to fully agenticize them because we've been doing it. So, you might be looking at a 20% margin. We're able to make it 40% instead. So that, 250K of revenue, you could roll it in quicker, you could roll it in more profitably. So when you mentioned like spending more time with customers, it's how do we increase LTV either through psychology and better experience, or do we have a lever to pull that's adding a new service line? And I think it's just easier now. It's still hard. I don't want to oversimplify it because everything's always hard. It's just easier compared to a year ago.
You talk about wanting your clients or the people you work with to become a business owner rather than a service provider. Is there an event that typically happens that causes that? Is there a progression? And is there a size to the business where you see that most often?
So to define terms, I define owner. By the way, Gary Keller defines owner. A business owner is someone who could walk away from their company, and when they come back in 1 year, their business is larger and better, revenue profit process. So that means fully stepping out from everything. And this is something I've been doing, not fully, but I would stress test. This is a concept I got from Amazon. I wanted to do that because I wanted to be an owner, and I would take off a month at a time. So what is super common, as you know, agency owners or service providers will build a business, but they are sitting in a critical function of the company: marketing, sales, fulfillment, management. Like where I give the analogy, they are typically the sun, and their business is solar system, where everything revolves around them. Now that means if you're going to sell, well, this is definitely going to be a 2-year journey where, like, when you get acquired, you're going to be in there because you are the insurance policy that this thing doesn't break. Compared to, you would know far better than I would, but like, if you are fully an owner and this asset works without you, you could come and go as you please. When you come in, you expedite the path forward. You're just focusing on the high leverage things. You're focused on strategy and like, what is Pareto's principle of the 20% of your time it's this level of growth. You're not required to be there. So you're actually able to grow far faster and focus on your resilient genius. So that's like the distinguishing factor. And the commonplace is it's really just a decision, right? It's really just you're typically seeing this happen anywhere between at earliest 2 to 5 million. And it's more so, do I want to sustain more capital and cash? Or do I want to build more enterprise value and enjoy this thing probably a little bit more along the way? So I'm going to, in the short term, pull out less capital from the business. But I was listening to Gary V recently when he was saying, put it all back in, it's going to compound far faster. So I think
there's finding a balance in there. So you have this event now, you mentioned it, 8-Figure Live. If an agency founder comes to that, it's a day-long thing. If they come to 8-Figure Live, will I come out of there with knowing how to do some of these things?
Yeah, so appreciate you prompting it. So what's unique about 8-Figure Live, it's an invite-only event. So I want to have a room of highly sophisticated individuals, people that love the game and they want to learn how to play the game. Typically, if you're going to show up to a live event, that's what's going to happen. But I'm kind of putting up these walls to make sure everyone that comes in the door is very, very legit, right? And they're respectable. So I'm curating really just 8-figure executives that know how to play the game at a level of sophistication I see the common 7-figure agency owner not doing. So we have some great speakers there. John Sturgeon's going to be talking about sales process.
Todd will be one of those speakers there.
Todd Taskey is going to be talking about how to increase your second bite, multiple.
Yep,
I don't know. You tell me.
And on. Yes.
We have John Giorso. He sold his agency for 12x multi figures, right? So like, I'm curating if the objective for like someone, they want to have a business like John Sturgeon. John's an owner, and he's got they're savages in that company. There's a lot to learn. I met someone who was actually studying his company, like as a use case. And John Giorso, like he retired and then he came back and now he's a holding company.
It's the reason we do this podcast, right? People like to listen to some of the stories I tell and they like to talk to consultants that can add value. But 10 times out of 10, I'd rather listen to somebody that's actually done it or a fellow founder or agency owner. And when you can create a room and an environment with people like that are real and have been successful, that's a great environment.
Yeah. It's in LA. If you're interested, if you're listening.
Yeah. So if I want to learn about it, do I go to 8-Figure Live? Tell me.
So I've made a conscious decision to delay the launch of the website because I think I could curate the room of like, it's going to be 160 people, 140 of them are agencies, 70 figures. Email me. Just say, hey, I'm interested in coming. I'm interested in attending. They title it 8-Figure Live. My
people that are listening, what's the email address?
Jordan, my name, at 8figureagency.co, which is
and that will be on the show notes, right? So if you go to secondbitepodcast.com, you'll get it there. If I wanted to listen to more episodes, your podcast is great, by the way. If I wanted to listen to more episodes of that, where would I do that?
Anywhere you listen to your podcasts. How to Scale an 8-Figure Agency, and the YouTube channel is Jordan_boss_8F. It's the same handle for my X.
Excellent. Well, Jordan, you do really great work. It's interesting to hear it directly from somebody that implements and does it in a very focused manner. So we know some of the same people that have been successful with you and the 8-figure agency. So congratulations on that success. Your 8-figure live is in April of 26 in California?
April 14th, Los Angeles. And I wedged it between weeks 1 and 2 of Coachella. So if you want to do the whole work hard, play hard type of thing, it's available to you. And yeah, it's a 2-day, it's 1-day conference style, 1-day networking style, TBD on what that's going to be. Yeah.
Excellent. Jordan, it's been wonderful having you. Thanks a ton and continued success.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.